The Lakers are off to their best start in years, but who is their best player? Is it LeBron or AD? Plus, the Warriors, Bucks, and Nuggets are haunted, and Dwayne Wade's statue looks like blank. I'll ask Matt Moore and Haize all that and more on today's Locked On NBA podcast.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Doug Branson, host of the Locked On Hornets podcast, and your shot clock Sherpa, your guide to the NBA's biggest stories with the help of the Locked On Podcast Network's local experts. With me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. We have Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Haize. Matt, Haize. The Lakers capped off a hot 3-0 start to the season with a comeback win over the Sacramento Kings, led by a LeBron James monster triple-double. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis is averaging, just a paltry 34 points and 11 rebounds on sky-high usage. Haize, who is LA's best player right now?
Anthony Davis. I have no doubts that Anthony Davis right now is their best player. You look at what he's doing, both scoring-wise, rebounding-wise, playing through him at times. And that's not to say that LeBron James and what he does, especially in taking the game over at times when it's needed to be a calming factor, isn't hugely important. But the Lakers need to hope that Anthony Davis is their best player right now and the best player going forward if they want to build something sustainable over the next few years, at least in my opinion. But, that's where I sit right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, congrats to AD. It only took him 6 years to catch the guy who's 39. Good job. Congrats on finally catching him when that guy's been having to drag this squad over the last 6 seasons. But yeah, look, AD looks like it. The key with AD is he's got to do this consistently. I was so impressed with him on opening night. Usually, to be perfectly honest with you, Davis dominates these small teams that can't match up with him. And then when it's a big physical lineup, he's kind of like, oh, I'm just helping. I'm just a team player. And it's like, no, you got to dominate every night, buddy. That's what you're paid as. That's what everyone hypes you as when you destroy the Wizards. Let's see you do it versus the real squads. But he's done it this year. And if he keeps this up, he's going to be an MVP candidate, or he's going to win DPOY, or both. But he's got to do it. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to do it every night. He's got to do it for 60 plus games. We got to see it from AD, but at least finally, it's not like, oh no, yeah, LeBron's still the best player on this team at age 400. And finally, AD seems to have caught him.
All right, well, the Lakers' 3-0 start is their best since Kobe and Powell led them to an 8-0 start in 2010 and 11. Here's Locked On Lakers host Brian Kamenetsky on how important this start is for this version of the Lake Show.
Lakers can go a long way to just silencing some of the noise around Redick. Did they make the right decision? Whatever. If they win 7 out of their first 10 games, even if they go 500 for the next 20, the beginning parts where people are really paying a lot of attention and the focus is right there, and that matters because then guys can go do their work and guys can build the way they want to build and do the stuff that they want to do because there's not this did they do this horrible thing storyline circulating around him. Nobody's being asked, but everybody thinks JJ Redick's great. We're done talking about it. We're moving on.
Okay, so my question is, you've got LeBron James, 39 years old. You've got Anthony Davis, who has certainly been able to stay on the court in last season, but has questions surrounding that. So how sustainable is this? Like, what is it going to take before you're convinced that this hot start is for real, Matt?
I mean, it's going to take like 20 games. We got to get through a quarter of the season. Like, this is a great start, but also they had to come back from double digits in the last 2 games to get wins. Let's see how they do on the road. Let's see how they do when they're not able to pull those kind of things off. Let's see if they're able to sustain some of the offensive stuff that we're seeing. I think all of this kind of plays into it. Now, like, Redick's influence is pretty clear at the start. I was talking to Tony Jones of The Athletic the other day, and he was just marveling over how Jackson Haize looks like an NBA player, like for the first time ever. Like, that's a really good thing. And you see all the rotations, everything looks better, feels better. The vibes are great. I think this team can be really good, but I do think we're going to have to give it some more time because I do think these first couple of games, a little bit of an outlier result. I'm not 100% sold yet, though I have to admit it looks really promising.
And for me, it's the bench. I want to know how consistent this bench is going to be over the course of the season. You have players like Gabe Vincent and rookie and Dalton Connect and players like that coming off the bench, but can they do it for a full season, for more games than not? That's the one thing for me. I trust that starting lineup. As long as AD can stay healthy, I have a lot of faith in that starting lineup. Not to say that they have a perfect starting lineup, but I have faith in the consistency that they're going to get there. I'm looking at that bench, especially as the season goes on, and especially looking at in the playoffs, role players and bench matters a lot. And so I just want to see how this bench is going to forge itself and the consistency that's going to build there throughout the rest of the season for them.
Okay, so the theme in both of your answers is wait and see, some future evaluation. I did see Jovan Buha of The Athletic mentioning that the Lakers have been interested in the past in Walker Kessler, kind of floated his name as a future upgrade. Do you see them thinking about future moves already, or do they need to evaluate what they have for a little while first, Matt?
I am begging them, don't mess with this. Don't go star chasing. Don't do the Lakers and Knicks thing. You have a good team. Appreciate that you have a good team. The exception is if someone will take D'Angelo Russell and give you something useful, then do that. You can do that, but only D'Lo. If they're like, well, we want D'Lo, and nope, it's just D'Lo. If you want to do the D'Lo deal and you want like a second rounder, fine, we'll throw that in. That's the only deal here. Everything else, just keep it the same. Don't go. I don't want to hear insert clutch client here involved in trade rumors in 2 months as the Lakers try and upgrade for a title chase. Just be content with being good. Start there, and then we can work forward. Don't mess with this unless you have to, or if it's just giving up D'Lo.
But Haize, what about the window? The window, is it closing? Do they have to move now?
Listen, the window's open, especially if you got AD playing like this. The window's open. Like I agree with Matt there. Like, don't just make a change just for the sake of making a change. If you're going to make a change, I don't necessarily agree with only D'Lo, but I will say this: if you're going to make a change, make sure it clearly makes you a better team. Not to go star chasing, but a Walker Kessler could make some sense on this team. Like I would love to hear what the parameters of the deal would be for sure, but like, I could like that for this team. I do think there are definitely things they can strengthen with this team to help keep that window open. But I don't want to see the Lakers go star chasing. Not again.
Okay.
He said clearly makes them better, and then you said not necessarily just D'Lo. That's the move that clearly makes them better. It's a direct line. AB there.
Addition.
Yeah, true, but I could see a world in which they give up Jackson Haize too in the right deal and it'd still be okay. I'm just saying that it's. Yes, D'Lo clearly does that, but if you just need something extra to D'Lo, depends on who you're getting back. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, before we move on from the Lakers, we did get an update on the future of Bronny James. It was reported that after this road trip that they're about to go on, that he will split time between the G League and the Lakers, that apparently was the plan from day one. Haize, we'll start with you. Is that a good plan for Bronny? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it's the only sensible move for Bronny. That better had been the plan the whole time. If it hadn't been the plan the whole time, I have more questions. If it wasn't the plan, yes, Bronny James needs to be in the G League. That's what the G League is for, is to develop players, to get them reps, because they're not going to get reps on the actual roster. Bronny James needs to be in the G League probably for multiple years, but we'll wait and see how this season goes for him.
I'm curious to see how this is going to go, because a lot of it's going to depend on who the Lakers have in charge and how close contact they have with Redick and his staff. You need everybody on the same page. Like, if Redick's in charge of that process of developing Bronny and focusing on the things down there that he needs to focus on, this can work really well. But a lot of times teams are just like, go down there and work. It doesn't really net anything. We've just seen it too many times. You have to have a close relationship and a plan with the G League. Otherwise, it's just cardio.
All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, we're getting close to Halloween, and some old ghosts are haunting 3 contenders with major star power. And later, are the OKC Thunder starting to look like peak Warriors? That's ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And in the NBA, there are 12, count them, 12 games to bet on, including the aforementioned Los Angeles Lakers, who right now, as I read this, are 4-point underdogs to the Phoenix Suns. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Get recaps on every game every day with Locked On NBA Game Time. If you subscribe to this feed, then you already have access to Game Time. If you're not subscribed, reach over and gently caress the follow or subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. I know you're giving me looks right now, and everyone on YouTube says mash it, but I say, give the follow or subscribe button a break a little bit. You don't have to mash it. You can. The same thing gets accomplished if you gently caress it.
Doug, the like button is going to be filing a restraining order if you keep this up.
All right. Golden State's season hit an early but familiar bump in the road as Steph Curry suffered an ankle injury, leaving fans worried about his availability moving forward. Let's turn things over to Locked On Warriors for the latest on his status.
The ankle roll for Steph Curry. And he is saying, as an individual who's felt it many times before, he would call it mild to moderate. Steve Kerr is optimistic. Of course, this is an incredible training staff. They are going to, do the due diligence and get the MRI. But it sounds like, all things considered, game 3, Steph Curry with a mild ankle sprain, will take it.
This is what everyone was worried about, though, in the offseason. This was like doomsday. And granted, if it's just an ankle sprain and he's out for a game or two, it's not a big deal whatsoever. They will survive. There's 82 of these things. And looking around the league, it seems like just about everyone, aside from the Thunder and a few others, have lost a game at this point. So that's not the end of the world. You can survive without him for a few games, but long term, if there are any hiccups with Steph Curry this season.
That was Kylan Mills and Charlie Walter of the Locked On Warriors podcast. So the Steve Kerr told ESPN, quote, "I feel more comfortable that we can withstand an absence offensively without Steph because of our depth." My question to you, Matt, actually, let's start with Haize. Do you feel more comfortable that they can sustain this without Steph?
Absolutely not. Can they sustain it without Steph? How? Steph Curry is the engine that keeps that thing going even still now. I don't care that he's not leading the team in ports. He's leading so many areas. He's so important to what that team is doing. Do I feel more comfortable that they can withstand? No, if anything, I feel a little bit less comfortable with it than I would have felt in the last couple of years when it comes down to it. So no, I don't feel more comfortable with Steph potentially being out and missing some extended time that this team can weather that storm. I just don't.
Yeah, so the offense so far has been 20 points worse per 100 possessions with Steph on the bench. They go from like an elite squad just absolutely burning the nets down like you'd expect to not good at all. So yeah, it's concerning, but here's the thing. They're going to have to learn. They're going to have to. If you pay attention last year, there was a dip in Steph's impact over the back half of last season. Father Time is catching up, and they're going to have to find some new ways to kind of hold it up when Steph starts to wobble a little bit in terms of his impact. He's been great to start the season. You'd expect that. But once we get into further in the season, they have to lean on their defense. This is going to have to be a defense-first squad. Them getting beat by the Clippers last night, I thought was a really indictment on them for where they're at as a team in terms of not being able to hold up on the defensive end, because that is going to be pivotal to them. This squad has to be athleticism and defense in order to survive, even when they do have Steph. That's going to have to be part of that equation. And if they can't figure that out without Steph, it's going to be a long year for Golden State.
So without Steph, who is the most critical player on that team to drive that defensive improvement?
I mean, I'm going to start with the defensive player of the year multiple times, Draymond Green. I mean, he's still an absolute monster on that squad. Now, I love what I've seen from some of the other guys, right? Like you look at the young guys, they've really taken a step forward. Pajemski's a good defender. Trace Jackson's a very good defender. They have all these guys. Kuminga has his moments as well. They have physicality and athleticism. They can all kind of contribute, but it's going to have to be Green dictating things. And I will say, this has been a struggle for Draymond over the course of the last couple of years when Steph's been around, when they were serious and not during those tanking seasons. They've really had a hard time when it's been Draymond without Steph as well as Steph without Draymond. That combo is what made them work. But Draymond's going to have to be better than ever and watch his temper in order for them to survive the stretch without Steph.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to kind of throw Haize's way, is that, we are always questioning, particularly in pivotal moments, whether Draymond Green is going to be available. So is it on Green to help, set the tone for this defense, or will it be one of these younger players that has to step up?
I mean, yeah, I would absolutely love to say it should be, because it should be Draymond, but I'm looking at Jackson Davis, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. This is your time now to step up and show what you can do. This is your time now to step up. You have no Steph Curry. You have nothing there. You look at this team's leading the league in rebounding. If that hasn't changed since the last time I looked at it, like, you're going to have to be active. You're going to have to use your athleticism. You're going to have to use your youth, and you're going to have to the fact that you just don't know better. Go out there and be great. That's what I want to see from those young guys. This is a time period. If Steph's going to miss some time, I want to see all these young guys step up in different areas and help keep this team afloat.
Okay, the Warriors not the only team over the weekend to be haunted by old issues. The Milwaukee Bucks dropped a game to the Nets by double digits, and the Nuggets remained winless. It's early, but I feel like both teams have some major viability questions going on right now. Here's our local experts with more. First, you're going to hear from Frank Madden of Locked On Bucks, and then Ryan Blackburn of Locked On Nuggets.
Want to call it lack of energy, lack of engagement. Bucks looked old and slow the last two games, I think, was a lot of what it comes down to. Were they not old and slow last Wednesday? Same dudes, and they allowed some of the same problems. They just didn't get punished for it.
Joker can have the games that he has and be as great as he is, and the other guys seem to lose their basketball immortality and power whenever they are on the floor without him. Is it because he is the greatest player I've ever seen? Probably not. There's something else that's going on, man.
Okay, what's going on with these teams? Which team is, I guess, more or less likely to find a solution? Which team is in more trouble, Haize?
I'd say the Bucks, and I know that's my own personal. I have personal things when it comes to the Bucks, not outside of just being a Bulls fan and hating the team. But I've never believed in Doc Rivers, and I think when your best player says something about your team and doesn't seem confident, you got to look at that. I'm worried about this Bucks team. They look old, they look slow, they don't look like they're ready to go. Every time I see the Bucks out there, and heck, the Bulls beat them. They mop the floor with them. I'm not too worried about the Nuggets. The Nuggets have an identity. I think the Nuggets have something that they have their two pillars still there as long as with their coach Mike Malone. The Bucks are a team that severely stresses me out, and I just don't have any faith in them personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got more faith in the Bucks than Giannis does at this point. Look at this tweet that we saw from The Athletic and this quote from Giannis. Right now, we don't have an identity. How are we going to win the game? Wow. Good thing we switched up coaches. This was the mistake with hiring Doc Rivers as the interim. This was just a huge mistake. You should have gotten through the year and then brought in somebody else. Going to Doc as the emergency option was a bad move. However, I will say I'm not worried about either of these teams. Do we really think the Nuggets are going to go winless? Do we really think that they're that bad? Do we really think the Bucks are worse than the Chicago Bulls? Do we really think that they're worse than the Bulls? They're going to be fine, but this is the issue. There's fine and there's championship level. But I also try and remember every team winds up being about three different teams through the course of the season because the season's too long. And so who you are in January is not who you were in October, and who you are in April is not who you were in January. So there's a long time here for both the Bucks and the Nuggets to find themselves improve. And the question is going to be, is that new team that they find themselves as by April better or worse than this squad? Because if it's worse, big changes are coming in the offseason.
And what are some of those big changes that you think should be made with the Nuggets? You're our Nuggets, you're our resident Nuggets expert. Do they, and can it wait until the offseason?
I'll just say this. If things get bad, there's tension between coaching and front office, and that's been widely reported, and we've talked about it on the show well before Zach Lowe mentioned it on Low Post. RIP. But I think that there's a certain element here of, if this team gets off to a really terrible start, then you have to make a change. You have to. If this gets out of control, if I'm wrong and they don't stabilize, you have to make a change. And every single team in the NBA has the same playbook whenever they face that decision. It's the coach, because it's a lot easier to fire the coach than it is to actually adjust the roster. After that is where we start getting into the front office and potential trades this summer. But the first thing would be Michael Malone possibly not being the head coach of the Nuggets anymore. I don't think he's in danger now. I don't see any reason to believe that he's going to be gone in the short term. But that's the playbook for every single NBA team if things go off the rails.
All right, coming up, Dwayne Wade statue reveal left a lot of people with more questions than answers this weekend. A few takes by Locked On Thunder and the Locked On Clippers podcast had me feeling the same way. We'll see what Matt and Haize think about it all with a game we're calling Dwayne Wade or Dwayne Wait A Minute. What is that? That's ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes buying tickets to your next event even easier, not just sports. Game Time has great deals on concerts and events too, and with Game Time Picks, they gather up all the best deals and put them all in one place. So I have a toddler, and we just found a babysitter that we like, and so that means that mom and dad are going to get to go out more. And sometimes you got to just pick a weekend, and maybe it's like Friday before you pick that weekend. What I love about Game Time is that they have a This Weekend section that I can go to and find the best concert here in my city. What I love even more is the all-in pricing feature where I toggle it on and it shows me the total upfront price with no surprise fees at checkout. I want to save all my surprises for the game or the show that I'm going to see, not the price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON-NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. There's a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. Just search your favorite podcast app for Locked On and your favorite team today. Okay, let's talk about this Dwayne Wade statue. Dwayne Wade was honored with a statue in front of the Kaseya Center on Sunday, and a lot of people had questions. Mainly the question was, who is that and where is Dwayne Wade's statue? It didn't look very much like him. So, Matt, what was your first reaction when you saw the statue?
I was confused as to who exactly it was. I was like, why does he look so old? What is happening here? And then the memes started to flow in, and they were absolutely incredible all the way through. I mean, just so many jokes at the availability. My favorite comment was from a friend who said, it looks like someone opened the Ark of the Covenant and Antoine Walker didn't cover his eyes. That was my favorite one that I heard from. So Wade's reaction being caught of who is that was the best part, I think, of the weekend, of that specific moment with the statue.
Well, the best part of that is the ambiguity, because is it Dwayne Wade being humble about like the fact that he has been enshrined in this way, or is it a slip, an honest moment, a Freudian slip of like, that does not look like me and I did not get a sufficient enough preview of this statue? Haize, what was your first reaction and what was your favorite reaction to the statue?
I wondered if somebody had thought they got hired to do a sculpture of Thanos with a beard, because that's kind of what that looked like a little bit.
That's a good one too.
Because I don't see Dwayne Wade in that at all. Like they before you do these unveilings, like you really should get a player to look at it and know what they're looking at, because between that and the Iverson statue recently, like it's just been a very disappointing stretch of statues, and I just don't understand. Why? I get it. I'm not the very most artistic person in the world either. That's why I'm on behind a microphone instead of behind an easel. It's not my cup of tea, but it didn't look anything like Dwayne Wade at all. Nothing like Dwayne Wade. Nothing.
It doesn't seem hard. I love sculpture. I've been to the Met. Like, I love sculpture. Get a 3D model, man. Like, at least get a 3D model to compare it, and then just be like, oh, wait, that's not him at all. I wonder about the review process for these, like Haize said.
Well, apparently it's the same company that did the Michael Jordan statue. So there's some history of these things going right, and then there's history of these going wrong. Although I will say I've seen some pictures of this particular statue in different lighting, and it does look a little bit closer to what they were going for, the Dwayne Wade standing on the sideline doing the pose. So like I can kind of see it in some of the new pictures. So maybe lighting has a lot to do with it. Now I don't know what it has to do with the eyes and the mouth being sort of converging like it's the poltergeist house towards the middle of the face. I don't know what's going on there. Also, I don't know what's going on with some of these takes around the Locked On Podcast Network. First, from the Locked On Clippers, host Darian Vaziri. I don't want to even preface these. I just want to play these, and then we're going to play a game called Dwayne Wade or Dwayne Wait A Minute. Dwayne Wait A Minute being like, I don't know about that take. Dwayne Wade being like, no, this is spot on. So here we go. This is Locked On Clippers host Darian Vaziri.
The LA Clippers make it 2 in a row on the weekend, and guess who led the way and is looking like he might be a most improved candidate? Ivica ZuShaq, baby, is back, and he might be here to stay. How many times have I gone back and forth with people in these comment sections for years about this guy, saying that he's not fully maximized, he's got very good post game, he's improved every single year, he deserves more of a chance as a hub offensively in the low post. Last season, we saw a little bit of that, but we didn't feed him enough. If this is what he can do consistently, then I'm going to be wrong about this team.
Okay, Ivica Zubac, no, ZuShaq. Haize, he scored 20 points in 3 straight games. What do you think about this comparison from the Locked On Clippers host?
I mean, nice run. Make no mistake about it. But do we believe that Zubac can keep that up? I like. Come on now. That's what I got to say. Like, what are we doing? Come on, man. I don't mean to be harsh, but that's what we're doing now. That's how bad it's got. You guys know I have no love for the Clippers. I have no love for the Clippers fan base. What are we doing? I don't know.
I think we should just have a segment on the show where Haize finds something to talk bad about the Clippers on, like concession food, traffic, parking, the signage. Look at the font on their outside posters. Who designed this? I will actually say Dwayne Wade on this one. And the reason I will say Dwayne Wade is, look, I don't think that Darian was saying that he's Shaq. I think he's just making the comparison of like actually a good player and being imposing. In that first round series in game 1, Zoo dominated Dallas. And then Ty Lue had some sort of brain embolism and completely lost all memory of the previous game and never went back to him. He's actually involved Zoo in so many defensive actions and sacrificed him by being like, hey, I'm going to need you to switch out on Luka Doncic, okay? And like just had him get roasted. But now Zoo's good in every single coverage that he plays. He can play drop. He can play at the level. He can play switch. He can play zone. He's good in all these areas. He is a good passer. He can score in the post on mismatches. Like, he's a very good player. He's not Shaq. That's obviously insane. But I will say that the idea of Zoo being an actually good secondary player for the Clippers to keep them held up until Kawhi gets back, if he gets back, I actually think that that's a pretty good take.
I think the Clippers are lovable. I'm going to go sort of anti-Haize here. I feel like the way they're playing defense and hanging in there despite all of the distractions off the court and obviously the deficiencies of not having, Kawhi Leonard on the court. Matt, I think they're lovable.
I mean, Ty is always really good with these kind of squads where it's like, get him, the Clippers have had a bunch of these teams too. They have one with Doc too, where it's like the ragtag leftovers and that team of like bad news bears or replacements of like, oh yeah, the other guys. And they wind up being more competitive because if you can also, I'll say this, you can coach up a team of role players easy. They'll listen to you. They'll actually do what you want them to do. And that can actually have really good results in the NBA because if you're just all on the same page, you're going to have more success than about half the teams in the league. So yeah, like I think they're lovable. I think they're really entertaining to watch. We'll just see if they can hold up, especially when Kawhi gets back.
Okay, so Matt was Dwayne Wade on that. Haize was Dwayne Wait A Minute. We'll see where you are on this take by Locked On Thunder's host, Rylan Stiles.
I think this Thunder team resembles that of the Golden State Warriors in their primes, at their best, at their peak. But what we're seeing within this season is the same type of wins and the same type of feeling. Do you remember that feeling you had watching those Golden State Warriors? It was inevitable. Like, yeah, it's cute. You might keep it close on ABC prime time, but in the end, the Warriors are going to go on a run. It's this.
All right, the Warriors as prime, or the Thunder as prime Warriors. Matt, are you Dwayne Wade or Dwayne Wait A Minute?
Dwayne Wait A Minute. Okay, like, they're awesome. And the inevitability thing, I think he's probably on target with, where there are games like the Nuggets led them in the opener. Like, they were up after that first quarter, and everyone in the arena was like, yeah, they're losing this game. And that was just very apparent. And that's how the Hawks were competitive last night, and then the Thunder just pulled away. But look, the Warriors really did change everything. When you watch them, it felt like there was no hope. The Thunder just feel like a really good team and like, dang it, had a chance and they're gone. I will point out this, though. The 2015 Warriors team is probably the most underrated of those squads, the first championship team. They were number 1 in pace and number 1 in defensive efficiency. We're way early, but the Thunder right now are 4th in pace and 1st in defensive efficiency. That is really promising given how many threes they can shoot, but I am not willing to put them on the Splash Brothers plus Draymond Green yet.
I'll go Dwayne Wade on this more than Dwayne Wait A Minute, only because I believe in the defensive and offensive versatility of this OKC Thunder team. And I think we still have not seen Isaiah Hartenstein. We're probably not going to get him back until the end of December, around the New Year time. But I think what Chet, the trajectory Chet's on, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already being an MVP candidate every single year. I think if Chet keeps it up, much like we talked about with AD in prior episodes, he could be a player that going forth into his career could start getting an MVP conversation as well. I love this OKC Thunder team. I love the defensive combination they have there with Wiggins and Caruso and those guys. So I'll actually lean more towards Dwayne Wade on this one.
It's like, how about, what if the Warriors were a team that none of the national networks cared about or talked about ever? That's like the comparison here.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's quite an experiment. But I do think that they have that element of how do you solve them? Like, what is what can you take away and not have some other ramification from taking that piece away? But certainly a lot of games left to figure that out for teams, and we'll cover it all here on the Locked On NBA podcast. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts. That includes on YouTube. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other, and we are going to be right back here on Tuesdays. Locked On NBA.